runs out of the room. Hopefully nothing crashes. As of course we tried to start the computer and everything tried to update. I just want to welcome everybody to our first seminar, in our transdisciplinary seminar series for this year. I've had a chance to meet all of you, which is great, so I don't have to introduce myself, but I'll be coordinating our seminar throughout this year. As a general rule, we're meeting every 2 weeks. It does have some changes, so again, a friendly reminder to everybody, please check Sakai where we have identified where the dates and times of all of those seminars will be, because there are a few variations. So today's seminar, and I promised I'd keep my introductory remarks incredibly short because it's jam-packed, was actually inspired by faculty and students from previous years. And one of the points of input that they had to try to improve our program was, what does everybody else in the ESRC do that we may or may not have met? At danger of wearing a sport coat while apparently leaning over a microphone. And so the idea of today then was to provide an opportunity to introduce all the faculty that are affiliated with the ESRC that were able to join us. And we've asked all of them to share a little bit about themselves and their research interests. We're also recording all of today's sessions so that each of them can have this portion back to put with their profiles about their research. As students, I want you to really think about what you hear, where some of your interests may resonate, and of course, as we talked about in 5P01 the other day, you're going to need to have discussions about second readers, committee members, and these are the faculty who are extremely passionate about environmental sustainability and who are deeply committed to our program and making the center what it is. So thanks to all of them for generously giving their time today. I'm going to introduce each of them extremely briefly and then give them 10 minutes. For all the faculty, that's 10 minutes, and I will give you a polite 2-minute warning, and I'll be over there with my notepad at 2 minutes, and then my favorite way to moderate sessions is I just stand up with 1 minute to go, and then I just kind of move myself towards the podium, and by the time I'm here and everybody starts to laugh, and then usually that's good, we're at 10 minutes. The other thing I just encourage all the faculty as you're presenting, please stay in this area while you present, because we are filming it, the camera's on here and the microphone is here. So with that, I would like to invite our first presenter up, Dr. Marilyne Jollineau from the Department of Geography and Tourism Studies. Come on up, Marilyne.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ryan. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you again. Most of you have met me at some point in the last few weeks. But for others in the room who have known me for years, you may not necessarily know a little bit about my background in terms of my upbringing. And the last name is Jollineau, not Von Trapp. You can see that it's very likely my mother used a set of curtains to clothe us as children. Hopefully you can recognize me in this photo. I'm the wee littlest one because I'm fourth born in my family, and that is 4 girls, in fact. And I think it's really important to know that because I learned a lot from having 3 older sisters. Anywhere from kind of learning about what I want to do when I grew up to maybe haircut styles that don't particularly suit me. So as the 4th born, there are basically no pictures of me that exist. And my dad decided, well, I didn't get the boy I wanted, so you're going to be my boy. So while my sisters learned about all kinds of things, sewing and this and that, from my mother, of course, I actually learned about nature. And my dad, being a military man, brought me out into nature all the time. And I have few memories of my sisters being there. But one of the first places he ever introduced me to was a wetland. And he would bring me around Ottawa, around different wetland sites, and he would say, what a shame that people dump their garbage in these places. This is a swamp, right? And swamps aren't really attractive places. They are a little bit even inhospitable, right? So I quickly learned that, that's really interesting, right? So I started thinking about the environment, and he taught me about trees and different tree species. And I honestly believe that my passion in remote sensing, doing things from a distance, taking lots of photos, right? Hands off my bangs, but having a kind of different perspective on the environment from above, right? A bird's eye view of the environment. Really allowed me to kind of study what I'm really passionate about without disturbing it in the way maybe traipsing through or throwing an oven into a swamp, for example, might disturb it. So that kind of covers where maybe I came from in terms of my sort of passion. And most people describe me as being very passionate when I get going about geospatial technologies, right? So GIS, Geographic Information Systems, you've probably heard of, global positioning systems, and then remote sensing. So I actually pursued even high school courses that taught me more about the environment, but then of course went to university, Carleton, and then the University of Waterloo to pursue grad studies like you're doing now, right? And my PhD coming out of Waterloo was actually in remote sensing of wetlands. And I have great enthusiasm and passion for all kinds of challenges that we face now today around the environment and environmental sustainability. So I use those tools, geospatial tools, to study things like water and water resources, water quality. Think about blue-green algae, for example, and Lake Erie is a problem that we can study with these technologies, but also wetland environments. We can map and monitor changes in wetland environments over time. That allows us to then protect those environments, right? Not just from people traipsing through, but climate change, so we can think of kind of global issues down to very local issues. Most recently, we've been talking with a few folks about projects around Phragmites. Phragmites is a reed grass that is a massive problem in wetland environments across Ontario and in fact across the country and elsewhere that can be nicely addressed with remote sensing technology. So I always argue that if you can identify different species, especially those that are non-native or invasive species from a distance, you can map those and then actually look at how do we manage those species, how do we eradicate potentially or at least monitor them, and how they change the landscape over time, while we're also thinking about changes in water resources, climate change, etc. So my passion kind of came out of wetland environments, but then I had a general passion for vegetation itself. So I've done studies in vineyard environments, in agricultural context, to look at vegetation health, really, or condition of the vegetation. That's another, I think, really important issue to think about when we think about food security and using remote sensing, for example, to map and monitor change in agricultural environments. Looking at the condition of a vine in the Niagara region is really important. Is there some kind of infestation or disease that's affecting that vine? A lot of what we do in remote sensing allows us to actually see that problem or disease long before our own visual system would allow us to do that. So it's kind of like an early warning system. Hey, there's a problem in this particular part of the vineyard, or imagine crops, or even orchards, right? Oranges in Florida, for example, right? These are billion-dollar industries, right? So there's not just the environmental piece, that's the piece I'm really excited about, but at times there's a huge financial cost and cost savings that could happen by using some of these technologies. So those are the things that I've really enjoyed working on over the last little while. I've spent a good amount of time collaborating with folks like Julia Baird, and now more recently Jessica Blythe, and of course for a long time now I've collaborated with Ryan Plummer, because I'm really interested in other aspects, right? Looking at the sort of social side of some of these challenges. And I really believe it's wonderful for us to quantitatively measure map, monitor over time, but then also couple that with the social side and the social or human dimension of that, right? Why do people perceive swamps as places that are dumping grounds, right? Think about all the movies that, you know, describe monsters that kind of come out of these kinds of environments. And again, I've worked in many wetlands. They aren't actually pleasant places to spend time on the ground. So I get that. In terms of new research directions and other research interests, I've also developed in the recent past, I've been working with a colleague in South America, is also looking at citizen science, participatory mapping. These are all connected as well to geographic information systems, where we, again, recruit other people that are involved in looking at a particular problem, the human side, and bring that together, couple that with the quantitative side, right? To look at, you know, why people are potentially overfishing or underreporting the amount of fish they catch, where those catches are, etc. So that's something that I've pursued in the recent past, and I continue to think about new and innovative ways that we can look at the environmental challenges from this lens of using geospatial technologies. So I'm going to wrap up there. Hopefully there aren't too many questions about my sisters, because I didn't actually get their permission to use this slide, and I'm sure they'll be mortified to see that it's available online. Let's see how long it takes them. But I'll happily entertain questions from the audience if you have any.